bring in the undervalued BYU quarterback runner, Ty Detmer, now to BYU Sports Nation.
Ty, were you an underrated runner?
You know, if you needed 10, I could get you 10. If you needed 15, I could still get you 10. So probably not underrated.
Fun to watch those old highlights and doing work with your legs, no less. All part of your repertoire, which leads us to our first question. You know, you had such an amazing Heisman campaign, and then there was this Indiana Jones poster, Ty, where it was the final crusade.
We got an Indiana Jones movie coming out here this month.
It's all lining up. So walk us through what you remember about this photo shoot, because there are several BYU fans that still have this poster hanging on their walls across the country.
Well, you know, at the time, it was kind of like, oh, man, this is going to be not good in the locker room. So, you know, you look back on it, and they were pretty creative with it was basically the schedule poster. So it had the, you know, instead of the movie credits or whatever underneath, it had our schedule. So kind of a fun thing, I think, for the sports marketing people. But yeah, I still get a few jokes when people pull that poster out from time to time.
Okay, we're doing the best win bracket, the best wins in BYU football history. The #1 overall seed is Miami 1990. Is there any way this doesn't win? The fans are voting. And is it your do you think that's the best win in BYU football history?
Well, I think because they were #1, it's got to be up there. But, I mean, you look at the Miracle Bowl, or you look at BYU beating Michigan in the Holiday Bowl to win the national championship. There's been a ton of great wins over the years, and each era kind of is different, you know, and I think there's certain wins that put BYU on the map early on with Gifford Nielsen and Mark Wilson and, you know, then Steve and Jim and Robbie. And so, and it's continued on. You know, there were some great wins over the last couple years that have kind of solidified that BYU could be a Power 5 team, which, you know, all those wins are important. So it's hard to say which one is the #1. I think for a home game, though, that year for us, that was it. And that was probably it for a long time, you know, as far as beating a #1 team. But there's been a ton of great wins over the years and great teams.
Its value is not just that you beat #1, which by itself, that would be enough probably. It's that Miami finished #3 and just had the one loss. I mean, they were incredible. And we've given a lot of value over the years to, well, how did that team actually end up being? Because like 84 Pitt was a huge win at the time. They were #3. Pitt stunk that year. It wasn't up to BYU how good Pitt was going to be. They just had to win the game. But the fact that Miami finishes #3, what kind of value at the end of the year did you guys attach to that? And do you think the fact that Miami stayed good helped you in the Heisman conversation?
No question on that part of it. You know, that kind of gave credibility to, you know, the numbers we were putting up because, you know, fortunately we'd played Penn State in the Holiday Bowl the year before in '89, and I think I threw for over 500 yards against them. So then to back it up with beating Miami and throwing for 400 yards really gave credibility, and I truly believe that was, you know, kind of the Heisman moment that year and for our team, and so. You know, they were a great team. They had, you know, first rounders across the board lined up. And so for us, I mean, that was the game that year, and the one that you couldn't wait for to get to all off season long. So yeah, it definitely gave credibility and showed the type of team we had that year.
Ty Detmer is with us on BYU Sports Nation. And Ty, managing expectations is always a fickle and tricky conversation and process. In fact, you're the head coach at Queen Creek LALA, and you've been so good the previous years that they bumped you up now to Class 6A. BYU's making their own jump at the Division I level into a Power 5 conference. So it feels like expectations for BYU are relatively low. We think a lot of people are just kind of hoping to get to a bowl game. How would you navigate that? And in fact, how are you navigating that in your own circumstances, jumping up a classification as a high school head coach?
Well, I think you like to come in as the underdog. Expectations are low. You know, I think you kind of relish in that people aren't giving you the credit maybe that you deserve or the respect you deserve. Now high school football is a little different. We graduated 19 starters, so we're starting over again and in a higher classification. So it's going to be, a little different for us than it will be for BYU, who's, recruited over the years and has a solid roster. So, they're in a position where I think they can go in and people aren't expecting a lot, and they can just play ball, play loose, and get after it. And so I know Kalani will have them ready, and we'll use that to their advantage. And so I think everybody's excited about it, and it's a great opportunity to prove people wrong.
How is BYU football perhaps more ready for this moment, given independence, given the buildup over so long, versus, say, if like in 1991 you had been thrown into the Big Eight or whatever, as it would soon become?
I think, playing an independent schedule allowed you to play Power 5 teams, more consistently over the years. And so back then in the, early 90s, late 80s, you'd play one or two of those types of teams. In 91, we played 3 in a row right off the bat. And so, having the experience that BYU's had and the success over the Pac-12 gives them a lot of confidence going into it. And so I think the independent schedule really helped prepare them for this moment.
Ty, in your opinion, what would be considered a average year for BYU this year, a good year, and what would be a great year?
I think an average year should be probably 7-5. I think the Marks try to get 8 wins every year and go to a bowl game and especially early on here, a great year obviously would be 10 wins. That probably asking a lot. Looking at the end of the year schedule, hopefully they can keep people healthy and not have some depth issues. And I think they'll grow into it, as Utah did in the Pac-12. It didn't happen right away for them, but as they recruited and had that Pac-12, banner on the wall and on the jersey, it helped them. And now BYU's got that with the Big 12, and it might take a couple years to get to that 10-win season. But, I think they're in a position to go in and shock people.
Ty, we just said we're keeping expectations low here, so I don't know what we're doing here. I'm just kidding. No, but we're doing everybody a favor by saying low stuff. So if they go 8+, we go, hey, that's a great year, right? Men's hoops.
That would be a great year.
It really would. Because there's a lot of new faces for BYU. It's a new era, Ty. 20 transfers coming in. And then we just don't know what it's going to be like to play 10 Power 5s and then probably another one in a bowl game. That's a challenge BYU's never faced. That was one that you faced in 91, where the beginning of the year, that was brutal. Like at that point, BYU was not ready for that sort of beginning of the schedule. But this year, BYU kind of eases into it in a way. How beneficial do you think that'll be to play new FBS team, Sam Houston, then Southern Utah, then you go to the SEC in Arkansas, and you play 9 Big 12 teams in a row?
Yeah, we would have liked to have had that early on in 91. But we were a different team. We graduated a lot of guys that year before. And so being able to kind of work the kinks out, get that unity and the timing of new guys playing together will help. College football is pretty unique. Even in high school, you play a scrimmage or 2 scrimmages and you get a chance for preseason games in the NFL. College football is the only one where you practice against yourselves, you show up and you're right into it on week 1. And so that does take some time. So having a few of those buffer games early always helps to kind of work out the kinks and figure out who's where and the timing of the offense and all those things. So, it's great to have that early on and hopefully they work it out and they're ready to go by week 4.
BYU legend and all-time great guy, Ty Detmer, is on BYU Sports Nation. As we look at what BYU has done in sending quarterbacks to the NFL in recent years with Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall, and now John Beck believes that Keaton Slovis is an NFL talent and will end up on an NFL roster. Is it fair to say that BYU and quarterback U are back?
I think so. I mean, you look at Zach and now Jaron at Minnesota. they've got it kind of worked out where, and with the transfer portal helps, with having another guy, senior, ready to go this year. So, only time will tell, but I don't really think it's ever left. You look at the guys that have been playing, have been great quarterbacks and solid players. I mean, Taysom's doing big things in New Orleans, maybe not at the QB position all the time, but he's definitely an NFL talent. So, I think BYU's always been known as QBU and probably will always be, just because of the tradition there.
I know that the original photo of the quarterback factory ended with Lavelle in the hard hat and the assembly line at Young, but could we get Robbie Bosco and then you and then Sark and so on up to Jaron Hall? Could we recreate that at some point? Would you be willing?
I don't know if Sark would get out of the UT gear, so we'll have to see how that game goes this year and if he's in good spirits or not. But hopefully he's not. We'll keep him in burnt orange. So, but that'd be fun to create part 2, and have some of the other guys. And you'd really need probably part 2 and part 3.
Really? Yeah.
There's been enough guys with John Beck and Max and now the current crew. So.
Doman and company, all those guys. Did want to ask you about this. Jim Nagy, the Senior Bowl director, he mentioned that guys in the NFL have to win. It's genetics. It's as simple as that. And we talked about genetics versus development. Certainly coming out of high school and even college, genetically, I'm not sure that you checked that box, but there were all these attributes that you developed, right, and created, and it was more than just like, what's your height and weight? What is that role to you in 2023 of like getting guys into the NFL? Because BYU is doing a better job of it, yet you had a 14-year NFL career at originally 6'1", 175.
Yeah, I still think there's some genetics just in other areas I had. My dad was three-sport athlete, played 3 sports in junior college, and went to Florida State, actually played baseball and basketball, and ended up playing some receiver there too. So, there was that competitive spirit that I had genetically and work ethic and all those things that you get from your parents. But I didn't have the physical genetics that some of these guys have, but I feel like I made up for it in other areas. Some of the intangibles you can't measure, and that's kind of the kicker that scouts or recruiters can't always put a finger on, is who has that and what guys are going to be that way. And so some turn out to have it, and some maybe don't. And then you're also, kind of bound to the guys that are around you. You look at a David Carr, a Tim Couch, some of these guys are that came out and were first-round picks that had to play for expansion teams and didn't have a lot around them. They didn't last very long. They were beat up and hurt, and it's just kind of the luck of the draw sometimes for that as well. So there's a lot of factors into going for a quarterback to be successful, but ultimately, you do have to have the intangibles and the drive, and the competitive spirit is probably the most important factors that people can't really measure.
Great stuff from Ty Detmer. Let's finish with this. Are you worried at all about the performance of your offensive coordinator, Max Hall, as he scoots around with his own injury?
I think he self-diagnosed himself out of the boot. I saw him yesterday out of the boot. I'm like, you sure be out of that thing? Don't tear that thing again. So, but he had some hip problems from trying to get around in the boot. So one problem created another, and I think he's on the mend. I just got to keep him calm while he's out of the boot here for another couple months to really make sure it's healed. So fortunately, we've got mainly just summer workouts, and the games won't get started till the end of August. And hopefully by then he's full go, because he can get animated in a game a little bit.
Good luck keeping Max Hall calm.
Yeah, that's my number one job here. Keep Max calm.
Ty, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Great to have you back on the show. We're so thrilled for your success at Queen Creek ALA. We're sending you karma to do your summer stuff.
And this is the only acceptable red on you ever.
It's true.
Because it's the ALA colors.
Yeah, I know. It's not Utah red. It's definitely ALA.
It's different. Yeah.
Ty, thanks for the time, man. We'll see you again soon.
All right. Appreciate it.
Heisman